We'll give her a balance. Balance of audience. How about that?
A rose between two thorns.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex. Thank you for coming to Flyleaf and supporting this independent bookstore, as well as this wonderful author. Your attendance and book purchases let us keep having these types of events, so I appreciate it. This evening, we have the pleasure of hearing from Sage Rountree about her new books, the revised edition of The Athlete's Guide to Recovery, 2nd edition, and The Art of Yoga Sequencing. Sage Rountree is the preeminent authority in yoga for athletes, a yoga teacher and teacher trainer at the highest level, and an endurance sports coach with certifications from USA Triathlon, USA Cycling, and the Road Runners Club of America. She lives in Carborough, North Carolina, with her husband and 2 daughters. We hope you enjoy the event. Thank you again, and you can get a copy of the book if you have not already up front. I think y'all have, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's your name?
Art.
Art, I'm Sage. Great to meet
Sage.
you. I already know these folks.
Okay.
I have just a short talk about the books, but then we can chat about anything that we need to. And this guy needs a lecture because he has a broken foot and he's thinking he's going to run the London Marathon in 5 weeks. Yeah.
Appropriate timing.
Yes, so that's very good timing. A typical question that people ask at book talks like this is, how did you come up with the idea for the book? So for this book, The Athlete's Guide to Recovery, the idea came to me in a flash, like they sometimes do. Some of them take a lot of work to come up with, and then others just arrive fully formed. I was in restorative yoga. Have you ever done yoga, Art?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, cool. So in restorative yoga, you just lie there on pillows and blankets.
Right.
It's amazing. It's wonderful. I was in Ironman training, and I was really tired, to the point where I was in the dentist chair, and I was blissed out just because I got to lie down. Never mind that I was going to this. They were drilling. I was like, oh, I get to lie down. Amazing. So in restorative yoga, it's like being in the dentist chair with no dentist present. You just get to lie there and have a timeout. And we were legs up the wall. And so your bottom is on the wall and your feet are up, but it just feels like you can feel it working. And I was like, this feels so relaxing. I really need to do more of this. Athletes really need to do more of this. Athletes need to know how to relax and recover. It's like, well, there's the next book. And then my brain started working to the point I was like, the restorative part of the yoga was over because I was thinking. And I pretty much came out of that 90-minute session and wrote the outline and then wrote the book pitch, which is like ironic, but also really wonderful that I was able to do that. Do you know the concept of the shower revelation? That like often you need to step away from something in order to see it clearly. So, maybe you're chewing on a programming issue or some kind of work problem. You're thinking about it at your desk on your computer, and eventually you're like, oh, I'm done. And you go and you get in the shower, and like 20 minutes into your shower, 20 seconds into your shower, you're like, ah.
It's like looking at a star. It's like a star. You can't see it if you look at it.
Right. You have to kind of back off a little bit. The idea is like if it's like a mason jar that's full of mud, you have to set it down and let the mud kind of settle so that you can see the clear water. It's the same idea. And that's what I want you to remember from this brief talk.
What's it called again?
The shower revelation. In fact, neuroscience studies the shower revelation about how you need to be removed from the stimulus. The right to have shower revelation. Because counterintuitively, it's that backing off that's so important. You really need to let go of the grip that you might have on the issue in order for it to become more clear. But it's totally human nature to push and to try to run through your stress fracture. How do you think you got there in the first place? It's because we want to focus on the things that we can control, right? And on the doing and on the making things happen. But so often what we need to do is focus on the stepping back, the taking the shower, the letting things happen, the dentist chair, the lying with your legs up the wall. Because without that cyclicality between stress and rest, between working and resting, there's never going to be any adaptation. You're just piling on and you wind up driving your body down instead of giving your body stimulus, time to recover, and then come back and go higher up. It's hard. It's very hard because we're so conditioned to control the things that we can control. But remember, every night when you go to bed, you can remind yourself there's a cycle to everything. Like every day has a night, and every workout has to have a rest period. And every yoga class has to have a shavasana. So there has to be cyclicality. And that plays out on the macro level and on the micro level, especially when we're talking about workouts. In a workout itself, you're not sprinting for 60 minutes. Say you have a 60-minute run workout, and it could even have a decent amount of sprinting in it, but you're not doing it in huge amounts. You're doing it in small amounts that are then followed by less intense intervals. So there has to be ups and downs right there. And in the course of your day, you have periods when you're working and periods where you're taking your shower and having your shower revelation. You have periods where you're preparing your meals and periods where you're digesting your meals. So there's wake time and there's sleepy time, even in a day. And in the course of a week, I hope that you don't do the same thing every single day, like from morning to night. That's what weekends are for, right? So please take your weekend, even if it's not a Saturday, Sunday weekend, to have that cyclicality. And over the course of a training month, if you're training for the London Marathon, it shouldn't just be week 1, I go hard, week 2, I go hard +1, week 3, I go hard +2, and week 4, I go hard +3. Week 4 is the step back, or maybe week 3, for those of us who are on the far side of 50, is the step back. Without that, then you start to create a downward trend. So that's the concept behind this book on recovery, is how to find the right application of rest in order to find the adaptation that happens to the stresses that you've put on. I have 3 stories for you, just examples of where this might happen. And one of them comes from the recovery book. I talked to an elite runner named Nate Jenkins, and he said he had a teammate who was very busy. I think even though they were elite runners, this guy like had a job, he had a baby, he was moving house, he had like a really stressful life. And the 2 of them went to Ireland to do a couple races. And he said, like, they basically raced right off of the plane when they got there, and the guy had a bad race. And then they toured around Ireland and went to pubs every night and just were like living it up and burning the candle at both ends. And then on the next race, this guy who was so stressed out at home, like blew everybody else out of the water. And he said it was because as stressful as our week was traveling, it was just like a total vacation for him compared to his home life. So each of us is able to sustain a very different level of stress, but when you give it the rest that it needs, then you get to bounce back and get even stronger and perform even better. In yoga, which is the topic of the Art of Yoga sequencing, we take Shavasana in every class. If we're doing it right, we take Shavasana in every class. The real type A's get up and leave, which isn't great because that's what you came for. I mean, they do sell t-shirts that say, I'm here for the Shavasana. It's like, I'm here for the dessert. And yeah, you should be, because that's where the shower revelation happens. That's where your body starts to integrate the work that you've put on before. In fact, this concept of the shower revelation, I think, plays out really well both in yoga and in sports, is that you have to have that stillness in order for the adaptation to happen, for there to be the clarity. So maybe you've had a Shavasana revelation and not just a shower revelation where you're like, oh, there, clearness. Hi. The 3, things come to you when you stop looking for them, right? I mean, now we can get a little bit mystical, but it's just kind of true. It's like when you stop looking for a boyfriend is when you find a boyfriend, right? You've given up, you've trashed the dating apps, you've deleted them off your phone or whatever. I got hitched long before dating apps were even a thing. I mean, maybe there was Match.com, I don't even remember. But I was in my first year of grad school. This was 1994, sitting on the sofa on Lindsay Street there in Carborough, right behind Pizzeria Mercado, and watching Melrose Place with my roommates. The Levi's 501 commercials were on. Jenny's probably too young. I don't know. Jeremy might remember that. You remember Melrose Place, right? 90210, then Melrose Place. There were these Levi's 501 commercials. They were in black and white, and the guys were all hot. It's like, where am I going to meet a guy like that? They said, not on this sofa. But then he came to my house, and I didn't even have to get up off the sofa. It was a friend of my roommates. So I had kind of like backburnered having a relationship during my first semester of graduate school. I wasn't looking, and it's that stepping back and that letting things soak in that often makes you available to what comes up. So that's the yoga teacher who's like, come on, universe. But you can't really force it to happen. So now can you think of a situation in your life where you just can't push it? You have to let it happen? Parenting? Teenagers? Yeah. Do you garden? I don't garden, but I think a garden is a really good example. I mean, you can't go, come on, seeds, faster. You have to plant the seed and then give it time. And it needs the cyclicality of the hot days and the cool nights in order to come up and grow. And it needs some nourishment. So you can't just go work, 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 and never eat. Same thing for the seed. It needs water and it needs the nutrition that it pulls out of the soil so that it can grow. I bet you can think of a lot of other examples from your life. So that's the concept behind this idea of recovery. And one thing I want you to remember is that you can't just do the pushing. You have to also give some downtime for your system to adapt, whether it's your physical system or your mental system or your psycho-emotional system. There has to be some stepping back. A great way to give your body time for that is to sit and read a book, because rest is happening there. And when your brain is engaged in something else, your body can get to rest on a slightly different level. So rest is the key. It really matters. And that's my sermon. What questions can I answer about these books? All right.
Okay, so both my parents had very bad arthritis, so I figured I'd probably lose that bed, which I did. I had hip replacement 8 years ago and 9 years ago. And now I've got bone on bone in both knees. And I designed and built tree houses and playgrounds, so I'm on my feet all day long.
Yeah.
And I went to my orthopedic person, I don't know, last summer. And I said, look, should I stop playing pickleball? Should I stop playing? Because he took x-rays and he said, you don't have a molecules cartilage in either knee. And I said, pain of 1 or 2, 2 and 3 on 10. But after I played pickleball, it hurts quite a bit more. And I played frisbee golf with my crew. And I climb ladders for a living. Should I stop doing this? And he said, no.
No, keep moving.
He said, the only reason your thighs are connected to your shins is because you've got good muscles, ligaments, and tendons for a 68-year-old.
Yeah.
So my question is, I love doing yoga, but now, given the bone-on-bone arthritis, even if I get a thick mat at a yoga class or at home, my knees still hurt. Is there anything, any product this, it's like, I don't know, water-based or something that could allow me to kneel without my knees hurting?
I've seen students using gardening pads. Speaking of gardening, they're pretty much just like a big Pilates mat that's been cut up.
Yeah.
I know you could probably get one at like the Season.
I got it.
Yeah. And that doesn't help? Is it not enough cushioning?
Art.
Yeah.
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 I'll try that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would try that because it's really portable. They even have a little handle cut out in them.
Yeah. It's good.
Blankets, towels can also help too.
Pillows.
Yeah, pillows. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or you can take a lot of things, and that is a great setup art for a pitch of the art of yoga sequencing. Because one thing that I talk about in that book is how you can take a pose and just give it a quarter turn in relationship to gravity and still do the shape.
Yeah.
You just are putting different pressures on your body. The application of stress is different. So if everybody else is on hands and knees, you could lie down on your back and you could still be doing the bird dog or whatever it is that they're doing, but you flipped it over and taken all the pressure off your knees, but you're still kind of participating with the group if it's the group experience that gives you joy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah. And that's the extent of my medical advice. Because I'm not that kind of doctor. If you want to text critically analyze,
All right.
I'm here for that. But I think it's great that your doctor said, "No, keep climbing the ladders. And keep moving."
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I will put the knee surgery off as long as possible.
Yeah. Good. Because then it's a lot harder to be on your knees. If you get the replacement, you'll probably wind up with a pretty sizable vertical scar. And that's the folks that I always see bringing those gardening mats in. Yeah, single or double knee replacements. Yeah.
So I have a question. Also recently certified yoga instructor, and curious to know your take on sort of the cueing while doing the poses versus cueing and observing. And sort of also I just read a couple of snippets of the book, and you were talking about like how, oftentimes there's the idea that you have this peak to a yoga class, but maybe it's better to have some of the more challenging or poses toward the beginning rather than that sort of cycle that you're just talking about. So.
Right. I don't give names in the book, but I do rail on a class experience, a workshop experience that I had where it was in a warm, huge gym. It's like maybe 85, 90 degrees all day, tons of push-up stuff, tons of chaturanga. And only at the end, like the 6th hour of 7 hours, did we start doing handstands. And it was performative too. It was like, who wants to come up and show their handstand? And now we're going to break up into the pairs, and with your partner, you're going to help each other into this. It's like, if I had known this was coming, I might have saved a little juice, but not happening. Yeah. The theory behind the sequencing method that the Art of Yoga sequencing presents is less building toward a peak and way more like, how are we going to be art and building tree houses and climbing ladders in our late 60s? Like, how are we going to do that? And the answer is not doing 20 chaturangas in every class and always only moving in a particular plane of motion and then doing handstands at the end. The answer is we're going to be multiplanar. We're not just moving forward. We're moving side to side. We're moving round and round. So then I start to think in terms of recipes. Like, what is the recipe for the class? And how is each dish that comes out in the full meal of the class going to have these various planes of motion in it? And therefore, I'm trying to come back to the cueing question.
What does cueing mean?
Cueing just means like how you're describing what, as a teacher, how you're describing what to do in class.
Oh, okay. So like CUE, not QUE.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Exactly. Once the structure is there, that every 15 minutes of class is going to have certain movements in it, then the class starts to understand, and you can say less. So you can say side bend, or even lean to the left, instead of saying, reach your right arm up over your right shoulder. Now take it over your left shoulder. See if there's room for it to go even more. Do your hips want to go to this side? Do you want to cross one foot over the other? You can just say, and side bend to the left. So there's this kind of chunking together that happens, not only for your brain as you're designing the class, but also for everybody's experience in class. If that makes sense. Jeremy's one of my regular students. Did you notice that?
I do. Well, it creates an efficiency for all of us in that moment, which I think is helpful.
Yeah, and then maybe there's like some foreshadowing in the warm-up that then becomes fulfilled. So there's the gun on the mantle, and we hear that it's loaded in Act 1. And then we see it. So it's not really building toward a peak. It's just like a theme that is woven throughout. It doesn't have to hit a crescendo. And if it does, that crescendo should come earlier when we're fresher instead of later. So it's more just like a symphony where there are various waves in it, but not one huge one. Yeah, and the cueing gets better with practice. When in doubt, say less. Your students only need enough to get into the pose. So if I can belabor the food analogy, we just want them to leave satisfied. We don't want them to feel overstuffed because that's kind of a gross feeling, right? And we don't want to, if they just want a peanut butter sandwich, we don't want to serve them like a deconstructed peanut butter and jelly, right? Like streak and dab, Michelin 3-star kind of deal. We want to give them a peanut butter sandwich because that's what they want. And that's all that their palate is hungry for. So don't feel like you need to show off and make it fancy. Just put some Jif and some Welch's grape jelly on some Wonder Bread. Like, that's a good entry point.
Yeah, I think that totally resonates. I was just thinking sometimes, there's a tendency to also say like, okay, well, this is how I always cue this pose. So consistency is good, but like, what if you want to have your students think of like a different alignment or analogy or something? How do you kind of keep it fresh while you want to be consistent and efficient, but also not necessarily saying the same thing every time?
Right. That is a fantastic question because we're looking for the balance between consistency and variety. And that is also a tie-in with the recovery book and just with the general principles of physiological adaptation for training and performance, is that first you have to have the consistency. Otherwise, the variety means nothing. So the consistency is way more important to have the base of the pyramid. But if we always only are here, then there's no growth. So the variety then becomes the key to adaptation. We change things up, it's a little bit different. Now we can grow in new and different ways. And we're kind of narrowing the pyramid. So we only do stuff that's really wacky, rarely. But we do change, some things out more. And with the cueing, I can't tell you. I think it kind of depends on how familiar you are with the students. If you know, like, well, here are the same 18 people that I've seen for the last 5 weeks, well, let's go, change it up, say something different. I will say, as a continuing student of movement classes, that I sure don't mind hearing something more than once. I think as a teacher, sometimes we've heard every word that we've said, and we're like, God, this is so boring, I can't believe I'm saying this again. Your students don't only need to hear it a lot, they like to hear it a lot. It's comforting. To the point where, again, like a wedge of food analogy, and if you go to a restaurant and you like what you ate at that restaurant, I had a fantastic salmon dish at Tandem. It was like tikka masala salmon at Tandem a couple weeks ago. And I want to go back next week. And if that isn't there, and suddenly Tandem isn't like Mediterranean style food, and it's Thai food, I mean, great, I like Thai food, but that's not, I would be sad if I couldn't get the same thing. And your students are coming back to your class from their second experience with you for a reason. And the reason is they liked it the first time, and they want more of what they got. So if you're always trying to be creative and change, then we're like trying to balance on the variety, and that's not great. Like, that's not a good way to align your pyramid, unless it goes way deep into the sand. So more regularity is never bad for the students. It's us trying to entertain ourselves as teachers. Yeah. And the same thing goes for your photography. If you are always changing your style, then it would be like, whoa, unless they're hiring you to do something artistic and fresh. Like, they saw your sample pictures on your website and they're like, we want them. Yeah. Same thing for your tree houses.
Yeah.
Like, if it suddenly was a totally different style, that would be very destabilizing unless there was a whole lot of preparation as to why I'm going to do the treehouse different for your unique situation.
Right.
Exactly. Good questions. Jenny?
How did you get the idea to write? Like, why did you think to write the book about it?
It's almost an expansion of a book that I wrote in 2015 called Everyday Yoga, which is quite explicitly like a recipe book. It's spiral bound and it lies flat and it's very visual. It's gorgeous. The pages are laminated like a cookbook would be, and it has descriptions of the poses on one side and pictures of the poses on another in a short sequence that kind of hits all the 642 as I describe in the Art of Yoga sequencing. But that's a book designed for the practitioner. Lately, I've been writing books that are designed for the teacher, for a practitioner who's very interested in like how the sausage is made. Like, how is that put together? And it can be really interesting. Like, once you have a little bit of experience with any topic, it can be really interesting to watch a professional do it and to learn. So again, like, to talk about photography, I bet y'all have people who would love to just shadow you for a day, carry your bags for you, and just see like, whoa, so that's how that all gets put together. So this book is also kind of for people who are, I might someday want to be a teacher, or I want to think about how that's put together. So then it was a natural fit to say, well, let me take the things in everyday yoga and expand them. And so slowly I've been amassing this library of resources for yoga teachers that started with everyday yoga, which was kind of a both and, but mostly for the practitioner, but then went to teaching yoga beyond the poses, which is about theming your yoga classes. And there's a second volume of that coming next year. To the Professional Yoga Teacher's Handbook, which talks a lot about cueing. So if you don't have that one yet, please check it out. It's a whole lot about like refining your language and reassurance that your students want the consistency more than they want the variety, that it's just your brain that wants the variety. And then into this, so that the idea is ultimately to be a full bibliography of things that people could plug into their yoga teacher training or into their library to feel like they can teach yoga, because we all want to be validated, right? And sometimes we get validated with our students coming back more than once. That's awesome. Sometimes we get validated with Instagram followers, and sometimes we get validated with like, oh, okay, I read this and it reminded me that I'm doing all right already.
That makes sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Any other questions I can answer?
Look forward to reading it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna have some
starting it
extra
tonight.
time in your day when you're not doing your pool running.
Exactly.
So
Thank you for this.
yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks guys for coming. I appreciate
Thank
it
you.
so much.